Hello and welcome to The Well. I'm your host, Dr. Brendan Arm, Doctor of Acupuncture and Oriental Medicine, Chinese medicine herbalist, and founder-director of Lotus Integrative Medicine in Santa Monica, California. There's a wealth of health-related information out there, and I'm joined today by this wonderful group of integrative and holistic medical doctors and practitioners to share some of our favorite wellness tips. Please let me introduce you to Bianca Rodriguez, a holistic psychotherapist, Dr. Heath McAllister, a naturopathic doctor and a registered herbalist, and Dr. Rob Krochmal, a medical doctor and a practicing physician who is board certified in family medicine, nutrition, and integrative and holistic medicine. So let's begin. Today's topic is COVID vaccine.
It's rolling out. It's coming for you. So this is interesting. There are a couple of vaccines that are, like the Pfizer vaccine, the Moderna vaccine that are coming out. They're, every one of my patients ask me about it. They ask me like, well, what do you think about the vaccine? Should I get it? Should I not get it? What are you going to do? And, it's tough. Vaccine development usually takes place over, anywhere from 3 to 7 years where they do, safety studies and we don't really have a lot of safety data on this vaccine. It's a novel type of vaccine, meaning it's an RNA vaccine. It's basically going to instruct your cells to produce certain types of proteins that will inhibit the virus. And, that sounds great, but we haven't had a vaccine like this before. And in the absence of safety studies, it's a difficult thing. For me personally, I worry about people that there may be some adverse events that we don't know about yet because we haven't studied it. So my position is that, we all need to make informed decisions about our health. And it's hard for me to make an informed decision about this one because the information is lacking.
And I that it's not like a regular vaccine, that it's like most vaccines work in a certain way, but this somebody was telling me is changing your DNA.
Yeah, exactly. This is giving your cells instructions to produce antibodies in a certain way. Usually the way a vaccine works is that they give you these certain types or spliced up or diced up or parts of different viruses or bacteria in the vaccine, and your body recognizes those by these little cells called dendritic cells and antigen presenting cells, and they go to your immune system. They say, hey, let's protect against this thing. Mm-hmm. Well, this vaccine doesn't do that. It's skipping that step. It's just saying, hey, instead of giving you bits of these things, it's saying already giving you the instructions to produce antibodies. So it's
Let me clarify a little bit there. There's a couple things. I'm mostly kind of in the category of we have to be skeptical, but I think we have to say that there is safety data. There's not a complete absence of safety data. It may not be as much as we want it to be, but they have given this vaccine to 40 to 50,000 people, I think on the Pfizer side as well as the Moderna side. So there's a sizable number of people who have gotten the vaccine. To be fair, they are selected people. They are in all age categories and in a diverse group as well, from African Americans to Latinos to Native Americans. And it does look like it's effective in across a diversity spectrum as well as an age spectrum. To be fair, again, there are people who are selected to not have anaphylaxis or history of allergic reactions and so forth. So we don't know what will happen in certain people who have potentially those pre-existing conditions. But we do have, around 2-month safety data. That's not a lot. It is something. And to your point, it's correct that they haven't released the entire breadth of their data yet, which is a bit concerning. That would definitely be nice to be able to read through the entirety of that as the public and as health practitioners ourselves. And so I will say that the initial data that they have put out does look promising and surprisingly promising in terms of the efficacy across those age groups and in terms of the relative lack of side effects, at least at the 2-month mark. But we can talk about potential long-term effects that have, clearly, just based on the rapidity of this, not been able to look at, as well as potential effects that are happening once we roll this out to the general population, which we're already starting to see to some extent. So there is going to be, clearly some issues that come up, and we're going to see a lot more over the next couple of months.
Dr. Rob, I just wondered, are they planning to release that data that you were saying that like have additional data that they're not releasing? Like, is there some laws around like how much they have to release and all this type of stuff?
I don't know the details of that, to be honest.
Is
Yeah.
there a good place to kind of try to look for the data, like a good source? I feel like there's so much going on all over the internet regarding the vaccine.
I don't know. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'll have to get back to you on that. Yeah.
Well, I heard something in order of, about 100 million doses are going to become available by March, which was a little faster than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be somewhere between March and June. And a close friend of mine who's an ER doctor here in LA already started receiving his first dose a few days ago. And so I got a text from him saying, he was excited to get that in his deltoid muscle in his shoulder. So he's in, and 21 days later, he'll get the second dose. And my father is actually a urologist in Connecticut. He's almost 80 years old, and he works in a hospital setting. And I think he's scheduled to get his on Monday. So coming up real soon too. And he couldn't be more excited about it. His feeling, as well as this other ER doctor, and I'd say my feeling as well, is that these are great companies, Pfizer, Moderna. They've been around a long time. I think they're being, even though it's moving quickly, the science behind it looks very good, and that's what I trust, and that's what I think these other two doctors trust as well. As what is our best in the field, telling us about this. So my feeling is, when it becomes available to me, probably I guess come March or after March, something like that, because I'm not on that front line in terms of in the ER setting or in a assisted living facility or nursing care place. I'm in. I would take it. What about you guys?
I mean, it's a difficult psychological. I would just put out that psychologically it can be difficult for some people, understandably, like the idea of actually making a choice to go do something, get a vaccine in your arm that can very likely at least give you some very short-term effects like fever and achiness, and you're not going to feel so good, versus kind of waiting and being careful or not so careful as some people are being for random chance to get the actual coronavirus, which clearly has some adverse effects, as we're seeing. So what do? Do you go out there and intentionally do something that may give you something, or do you kind of sit back and wait? If we did wait for 3, 4, 7 years, as Dr. McAllister was saying, the coronavirus would sweep over all of us inevitably, and that can be debated separately, whether that herd immunity through actually getting the virus may end up in the long run have bending us shoulda, woulda, coulda. We don't know. To Dr. McAllister's point, it is true that we don't know what some of the longer term effects of the vaccine will be and how long it will last, and if it will be a good idea in the long run. But yeah,
I'd like to say, I'm not suggesting we not do anything. My reservation is that it comparatively to other vaccines like MMR, or we have a dearth, we have a minuscule amount of data, a pre-selected data set. Adverse vaccine reactions do happen. Like, I'm not anti-vaccine at all, but I'm a little more conservative when it comes to things like this. For my daughter, for instance, we vaccinated her, but we vaccinated her slowly. We let her body adapt to the vaccine that it was given, and rather than hitting her all at once. I mean, our son went to his pediatrician and he was given 7 vaccines at once, which is like ridiculous. Like, your body, in my opinion, your body's going to have a hard time adapting and having an accurate antibody response to 7 antigens at once. So I'm a little more conservative with how I view vaccines. And I'm also, I understand that typically when they evaluate vaccine safety, they're not evaluating vaccine safety against placebo, they're evaluating against another vaccine. So for instance, they'll look at the safety studies or adverse reactions of a vaccine against, say, the MMR vaccine. So it's not against placebo, which is the gold standard. So I I feel like the research and the studies on vaccine and development could be a little bit better. And for this one in particular, I worry about adverse reactions. And so that's why personally, I might not get it for 6 months and see what, what kind of data rolls out for people that do elect to get it, that do feel comfortable getting it. I personally don't feel comfortable getting it. I'm not at high risk either. I don't work in an emergency setting. I do a lot of my consultations are remote. Our family is socially isolated. I can afford to do that. Other people might not feel like they have that same, luxury to wait. But I would personally feel better. My wife feels the same way, and she works in a hospital. So, that's a counterpoint. But I wanted to ask Bianca. Bianca, where are you at? You're not in the same degree of medicine like all the rest of us are. What's your take on it? Like your perception of, would you get it? Do you feel like it's safe, effective? Like what have you received?
Yeah, well, I mean, what you guys are talking about is what, I always, kind of walk clients through that process of with everything, which is we have to weigh, right? Being an adult, I feel like, is about choices, and you want to weigh the risks and the benefits. And so, providing this information is one way to help people get that information. Obviously continue your research so that you can figure out for yourself, what are the risks and benefits. And I think that some people are in a higher, much higher risk position due to, being on the front lines. And so I get that would be, that's a different scenario than somebody who's doing similar to you, Heath. I'm working from home, I'm isolated. I, due to my history of medical, issues with asthma, with allergies, I'm a kind of a sensitive makeup type of person. And I know that about myself. And so for me, yeah, the fact that there's only 2 months of data is, worrisome, but, I'm going to out myself. It's like, what do we know about Botox? How many years have they been given that? You know what I mean? So it's like kind of interesting. It's what, to think about, like, when that's an option on the table of something that it's like in 20 years and 50 years, how's that going to be affecting the body? So for me, I really look at, like, what am I willing to put myself at risk for? And when we talk about the vaccine, I think it's the thing we've been talking about during this entire pandemic is me versus we, right? So it's like, I know that there are some people out there, it's not my opinion, but, there's some people who very strongly feel that folks who are in the anti-vaccination camp are, being selfish. They're putting a child at risk that could then, infect whatever, a bunch of other families, a bunch of other kids. And I think that that's kind of been, on our minds, most of my clients' minds, on my mind, whenever I take an action anymore now. It's like, how does this impact my community? How does this impact us as a whole? And if me, getting the vaccine after I really sit and do more of my research is something that would work for the greater good, would be in service of the greater good, and wouldn't do such a disservice to me that I could, end up very, very sick, dead. That's also not going to serve the community, because then everybody's going to miss me. Oh, my clients are going to be like, well, that was a trauma. My therapist died of the COVID vaccine, right? But it's like, if it serves the greater good, then I kind of feel like that's what we're being asked to think about during this time. I mean,
That's
it's really interesting.
That's a good point. I mean, especially most of us probably won't even get an option at least till that March deadline, or that March date anyway. So we'll get at least another 3 months more of, data, so, I mean, because most of us are not on the front line. I mean, I think as last I heard, as of earlier this week, there was, I think, somewhere between Saturday and Monday, there was delivered like 237,000, at least to California, doses. But again, that's for just that small population that's, the frontline workers. And in the conversation about like getting up to herd immunity, I mean, at one point it was polled that like 60% or 50%, 50 to 60% of Americans would actually take it, but somehow that's bopped up to 76%, and you only need 75%, I guess, to get the herd immunity. So, if there's a slice of the population that just is, no matter what the data says, just won't take it, I still think we'll be able to get to that herd immunity when the opportunity becomes available, sometime March or thereafter. But you're right to bring up a good point, Bianca. Like some of us, I'm not so much in that category, but some of us have, weakened immune systems, or have, some serious respiratory issues, autoimmune issues. They may have a lot of comorbidity issues that makes the choices a lot more difficult, for each individual.
Yeah, and for me, it's a choice of like, I need to look into what are the side effects of the COVID vaccine, but this is getting COVID as a person with chronic respiratory issues is even more frightening. So,
Right.
yeah, I mean, I think it's really about weighing the risks, weighing the benefits, you know, getting as much information as you can. If people have questions for us, wherever you are finding this video, put them in the comments. We can do our best to try to answer them so that we're all navigating this together. And I don't think there is one exact answer because we don't know in 10 years and 20 years what this would look like. So
I guess a greater question for me is that what do you all think? Should we have the right to choose? Because
yes.
this is going to come up. Should we have the right to choose? Do we have the right to, is it within our right? Bianca, you brought up a point about, kind of a duty to do certain things. Would you, how would you all feel if the government mandated vaccinations? Would that be something you would support, or is that something you feel like is violating some kind of, human right?
Personal right. I think it should be the person's choice.
Me too. That's my knee-jerk reaction without having really pondered it is, your body, your choice.
Yeah.
I agree with that too. Yeah. And the government has never, as a federal government, has never mandated a vaccine. And now is not the time to do that. And all indications are that that won't be happening with this. And I'm heartened to see that, even from the top levels, there is some cautionary notes coming out, like don't get this vaccine if you have a history of anaphylaxis. So there is some indications on that level that it's not going to be mandatory. So I think we can fall back to your position, Bianca, which is that we have to evaluate the costs and the benefits, and then just kind of our personal place in within our community and how we feel we can best make this decision. And it will be just different for everyone. And I'm hopeful that the way that it will be rolling out, the risks for people on the front lines and the risks for those that are in the older age groups of getting coronavirus are likely higher than the risks of getting the vaccine. And those are the people that will be getting it first. And so it will be easier in the next couple of months to make that decision for some people. Like you were saying, Brendan, you've got some people that are, my dad is ready to be like number one in line to go get this. And I think you can check, the New York Times, I think, has a list, and you can check where you are, where you are on that list. I think I'm like number 60 million or something in line to get the vaccine, because I'm also not on the front lines. So I'm hoping, to your point, Brendan, that we will just kind of naturally get to a herd immunity through this without any types of mandates or feelings that we are getting our personal choice taken away.
Everyone stay safe out there. Have good holidays. That's all we have time for today. If you have a topic you'd like to learn more about, let us know with a comment on social media. And also don't forget to subscribe to our The Well YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us, and please join us next time for wellness tips. Remember, regardless of where we are, our resources in The Well are limitless.